Welcome back to Double Take, a football podcast. This is our 45th episode of the show. I'm your host, David Gonzalez, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Daniel Gonzalez. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We're experiencing some technical difficulties, but we're going to keep it going.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this is just on StreamYard and then this won't show up in the actual when we finally post it, but we're just going to trek on. Today, we are discussing and giving our top 5 quarterbacks coming out of the NFC this season. And then we're going to predict the NFC North and South division winners and the teams that we believe that are on the hot seat. So let's go straight into our first segment of this very short episode. We, like I said, are going to pick our top 5 NFC quarterbacks heading into the 2024-2025 season. And as a review, here's our list of top 5 AFC quarterbacks based on who would rather have and who plays the quarterback position better, regardless of their circumstances. So here's our top 5 for the AFC. At number 5, we had Josh Allen. At 4, we had Lamar Jackson. At 3, we had CJ Stroud. 2, Joe Burrow. And number 1, we had Patrick Mahomes. So, Daniel, this is going to be a little bit different because I think I want us to try and do this together for us to come up with who we think are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFC. So let's go ahead and do we want to start at 1 or do we want to start at 5?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think let's start at 1 and work our way down. Or no, you know what? Let's do 5. Let's do 5 and work our way up.
Okay. I don't know if you have your list at all. At number 5, I have Jordan Love. I think that he's a really, really good quarterback, but we've only really seen him play 8 to 9 games so far, and they've been really good games, especially the back half of the season. I don't know if I give him I mean, this is not a knock on Jordan Love, but I don't know if I give him that much credit for the Cowboys game just because the Cowboys defense was just so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some throws in that game in particular where he threw it off his back foot and it was short. Like it was short, but the fact that they were wide open didn't matter. So yeah, I don't think the Cowboy game was enough to be like, okay, this guy's already better than this guy, this guy, and this guy. I don't think he's there yet. I think, does he have the potential to be there? I think we need to see after this season. It's a wait and see with Jordan Love. So I agree with you. I have him at 5 as well.
Yeah. And at number 4, I have Brock Purdy. He's kind of not in a similar situation because he has a full season under his belt. Then in his rookie year, he started 5 games in the regular season, played pretty well in those games, and then in the postseason, he played well. I mean, they were undefeated in his entire rookie season. He gets them to the NFC Championship game, and then he gets hurt. Full season last year, over 30 touchdowns thrown, has an MVP type season, and he's got a lot of weapons around him. I think my only hesitation of why Purdy's not higher on this list is just because he does have all these weapons around him. Not to say that he's not a good quarterback, because clearly he is with this roster. And so he shouldn't necessarily be knocked for that, but that's kind of the reason why I don't put him in my top 3, is just because of the talent that surrounded him. And in the very few moments where we've seen him not have all of his weapons there, he hasn't played well.
Well, then I think this opens up an even bigger conversation then in terms of, if you have Brock Purdy over Jordan Love, why is Brock Purdy not in our top 10 list and Jordan is? That would be my question.
Well, I think it's because our top 10 list is a different criteria than this top 5 list. I mean, this top 5 list is overall who plays the position better regardless of circumstances. our top 10 list is based on circumstances, based on what we've seen, and based on the deficiencies around you. Jordan Love, I think, has done a lot considering that he has one of the youngest offenses in the NFL. And the fact that he had them toe to toe against San Francisco is a huge testament to him and a huge testament to his ability as an overall quarterback. I think just I just think that in circumstances he's better. Uh, he's played better, but I think in this top 5 list, I would say, well, no,
Well,
now
it's
that I'm saying that,
well,
no, I think you're right. I
because
think
the
you're right.
criteria on this
Yeah,
top 5 list is who
yeah,
would you rather have and who plays the
mhm.
position despite circumstances, which the
No, you're
top
right.
10
Yep,
would be the same thing.
yeah.
And
I
and
guess I guess the reason why I did that, and this is a dumb reason probably, I just felt like 5 was too disrespectful to Purdy because of the team that he does have around him.
yeah, I mean, and I think for the sake of being consistent, we may wanna put Brock at 5. If we think that Jordan Love, talent-wise, is better than him, and
Yeah,
this may be even a projection of what we're gonna see in the next year, and if we think that Jordan Love is gonna be better than Brock, then we should put him at 4 and Brock at 5.
well,
And it's not to take away from his accomplishments, but we also agree that maybe him having a better team than Jordan is a reason why he's accomplished more, and the fact that Jordan did go toe to toe with him, even though he did cost them the game at the end.
yeah.
It's his first year starting. I don't know how we wanna remedy that.
So I guess the reason why I have Brock Purdy over Jordan Love is because in the moments when you needed him the most, Brock Purdy engineered a drive that gave them the lead. And then what did Jordan Love turn around and do, regardless of talent on the field?
Yeah, he threw it across his body and
And he
the
threw
other
a
side of
pick.
the field. No,
Game sealing
I'm
interception.
with you. I am with you. I would put Brock at 4. I'm just saying that that means
I
our
don't
top 10 list might be wrong if we're
I
gonna
don't
have
I
Jordan above of Brock.
I still don't think it is just because we're acknowledging for Jordan Love that his team is not better. And I think that he had here's the thing. The fact that he pretty much had the same production as Brock Purdy with his roster being the youngest in the league is a testament to him. And also because of what we're projecting for the future with this roster, you've already locked him down into a contract. You're
Mhm.
able to keep the guys around him. Like, I think that's why Jordan Love is higher on our, like, future top 10 list because we can see Jordan Love ascend and get even better. I don't know if we can say the same about Brock Purdy, which is why we currently don't have like, because like, I guess my question for Brock Purdy that he still has to answer for our overall top 10 list
Mhm.
is, Brock Purdy, can you give us the same production that Jordan Love has with
With less.
not with less. And that's why on the overall the top 10 list, he's not high up on my list. But when it comes to this, like top 5, like just based on who plays the position better in the moments that you need to, I think Brock Purdy deserves the nod. And it's not even like a large gap of a nod, but he does have the slight one just because he has outplayed Jordan Love when it mattered the most.
Mm. Okay.
So I don't know if it's inconsistent. I mean, if it is, if you're listening to this and you feel like it is, comment below and explain why. I'm trying not to be inconsistent. I just think that there's different criteria for these two lists because The top 10 list is based on circumstances. This one's regardless of circumstances, just who plays the position better and what we see in the future.
Yeah, I think the tension that I'm feeling is if it's regardless of this circumstances and who would you rather have, but you have Brock ahead of Jordan, I feel like then who you would rather have should be above that person in the top 10 list too. Because it's regardless of the circumstance and who do you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I want a winner, if I want a guy who can prove that he can play in the big moments and win you games, then based on the data that we have right now, it would be Brock, not Jordan. So why isn't Brock ahead of Jordan? And so if you are listening and you feel that tension as well, and you're like, hey guys, you guys got to be consistent. If you rather have Brock than Jordan Love at this stage and age of his career, then make that switch. Let us know. It's just something that for me, I'm personally wrestling with
Yeah.
because I think the conversation with Jordan Love is this. He's proven that he can do more with less. That much is clear because
Yeah.
none of the guys he has on his team are Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, right?
Yeah.
So, but the downside for Jordan is that he hasn't done it for more than a year, right?
Yeah.
But people are believing that he'll be better and he's going to continue to get better because
His team got better and
his
his
team has gotten
receivers are
better.
older.
He's going to obviously get better because it was his first year of starting.
Yeah.
So the natural progression of a first round quarterback, if they play really well, at least for their first year, they're going to get better. And so I think that's kind of how we're judging Jordan Love right now. I wish Savage was here to kind of be not the voice of reason, just to be another voice in this conversation.
Well, I feel like I know what Savage would say. He said, "We had Jordan Love higher on our top 10, so Jordan needs to be in front of Brock." And I'm pretty sure Savage probably would not even have Brock in the top 5.
Yeah, he might put Caleb in there already.
I know he wouldn't put Caleb, but he'd put maybe I don't know who else he would put in there.
Well, because I'm looking right
Yeah, he'd
now,
probably put Jaden Daniels probably in the top 5.
maybe because like
He
I'm
probably
looking
would.
at like numbers for NFC quarterbacks. The names I'm seeing at the top of this list: Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Matthew
We
Stafford.
can yeah, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's not a lot of quarterbacks that we can go to ahead of Brock just based on production and what he's done.
So, you have to remember though, we did our top 10 list, like what, in March?
Yeah,
Maybe April? And so maybe as kind of we're now more further away from
we
the
may want to revisit it.
season, we may wanna revisit that conversation. But no, I think I agree with I don't know. To me, there are 2 different criteria for top 10, top 5 of what we're doing right now. But I can also acknowledge where it may seem like we may seem to have a contradiction.
Yeah.
Because I think with Jordan Love, we know what he is, we've seen what he's done, and he did it with less talent.
Mhm.
So, in my mind, ultimately, he is better or going to be better than Brock Purdy.
So
But on the flip side of that, Brock Purdy, when he needed to get it done, he's gotten it done for more time than Jordan Love.
mhm.
So Jordan Love has the potential, has a production with less talent, but on the flip side, Brock Purdy has achieved more and done it longer.
Yeah, I think yeah, because I know what people would say, and I hate this argument. You know how much I hate this argument. You put Jordan Love on the 49ers, what happens? Would he do the same thing? And that's my and I hate that argument. It's the worst argument in the world because it would just never happen.
Yeah.
Because I live in the real world and not in fantasy land.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you hate this argument.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most compelling point, I don't wanna say against Jordan Love, but in this discussion against him, is the fact that he had the opportunity against the San Francisco
He
49ers,
did.
and he threw it, you know, across the field in a terrible spot and cost his team the game.
Yeah.
And, 49ers, yes, is a great defense, but then we have to use that same argument for Brock Purdy and the fact that every time he left the field in the fourth quarter in overtime of a Super Bowl, he had the lead.
Mhm.
And did he do enough? No, and again, that may be why we don't consider him the best quarterback in the NFL or even top 5 or maybe not even top 10. But in those situations, based on what I've seen for Jordan Love and Brock Purdy throughout their career, I'd rather have Brock Purdy at this moment.
Yeah. And I guess that's the separator. That's the
Mhm.
separator that I see from the top 10 and the top 5 because I think top 10 is still it's a little bit more
It's a little bit
projection as
more
well.
talent, what you've done, or your personal talent
Mhm.
individually, the talent you have on your team, what you were able to do, how much you mean to your own team.
Correct.
That's the kind of the criteria of top 10. And so
This list kinda takes away all of that
mhm,
and just kind of like, where are they right now?
like, how have they performed with the team that they have?
Mhm.
And based on what we think their teams are gonna be in the next year, where we would rank them, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I would be okay with switching those 2, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should.
If people said, "Now you gotta put Jordan over Brock," I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
Um, but I will acknowledge maybe we were too quick to put Jordan Love within what, the top 8, top 9? Because we had him at number 9.
I don't think so because I don't think you can name more than 8 quarterbacks that you would take above him. Based on what they did, postseason, all of that,
Mhm.
I think we had him right. I think the 3 of us
Okay.
had that right because I mean, initially, Savage didn't put any stock into Jordan at all. Kinda made it seem like he played bad teams. He only played well in half of the season. Um, but I think after the Dallas game and maybe on bits and part of the Green Bay game, his mind kind of flipped on Jordan. It was like, okay, maybe this kid is the real deal. So I don't think we were wrong in that. I think 8 is about right. There's people who would already have him top 5, and I just don't agree with that just yet. I think this year he has the opportunity to make that claim if he has another season or if he can do a complete season where he plays really well and then has again another playoff win, is competitive, because I think part of the reason why we had him in the top 8 is because he did kind of take the 49ers to the wire, and that's a good defense. And so that's I'm not going to say maybe. That is the reason why we put him in the top 10, because he, whether whether or not you want to put stock in the Cowboy game, but he did go toe to toe with the 49ers. He just unfortunately made a, can we be honest, a rookie mistake. Like, that's essentially
Yeah.
what he did.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we were too quick. I think there's a lot of people who were already putting him top 5 already, and I think that may be too quick.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so we can do that. So Brock Purdy 5, Jordan Love 4. Who do you have at 3?
For me at 3, I have Jared Goff at number 3. Um, and I think this may be easier, David, if since we're now going differently, because I think I know who you have at 3, and I think I flipped 2 and 3 for my list, and I'll explain why. So at 3, I have Jared Goff, 2, Matthew Stafford. I think I think Jared Goff is a great quarterback. But for the same reason, this is why we may need to redo our top 10 list. Jared Goff is a great quarterback when he has everything that he needs around him. Meaning, he has a running game. He has a Would you agree he has a pretty good receiving core? Like he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds,
Yeah, I
Sam
mean, this is
Laporta.
stacked receiving core for sure.
And so, and I think when he is pressured, that's when he struggles. When he gets pressured. But when you have one of the best offensive lines in the league, you don't have to worry about that much. So I think who would I and again, who would I take? Who would I rather have? Matthew Stafford, because Matthew Stafford can play against the blitz. You know, he can still put up numbers, with not the greatest team around him. And so maybe and for me, I think this year is going to be very telling because like if you look at the season that Matthew Stafford just had just a year ago, it doesn't look that impressive. He missed 2 games, so he had just under 4,000 yards. He had 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So and there was a stretch throughout that year where the Rams weren't that good. But then they kind of flipped the switch at the back end of the year. And I can't remember if it was this past year where they played Detroit in the wild card. And didn't they kind of get the bad end of a whistle
Yeah, there was
in
a
that
pass
game?
interference call, I think, on Puka that did not get called.
Didn't get called.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of I'm judging him by the back end, not his totality of the year. Now this year is going to be very telling because again, assuming everybody is completely healthy. Aaron Donald just retired. What is that defense going to be this year? So, but I would still take Matthew over Jared because I think Matthew's still a better quarterback than Jared Goff, even though Jared Goff is in a better situation than him. So that's my reasoning for the flip on 2 and 3.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I thought you were gonna have Jared Goff at 1. I guess why you thought I would have Jordan Love at 4 over Brock Purdy because
Mhm.
based on our top 10 list,
Yeah.
um, because I absolutely agree with you about Jared Goff. I think that he if you take Jared Goff out of that system, I don't think that he has the same level of production, and I don't think he looks as good, which is why I had Dak over him in our top 10 list. Um, and you and Savage disagreed and put Jared above Dak.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I think I came back to you probably weeks after that and said, "No,
I
I
know it's like that day.
It was
That
yeah,
that
it was that day.
it's literally that day you
It
said,
was
"No, I
literally
think
that
you're
day. I
right."
was in the shower and you called me, and that's when you not that you convinced me, but you were able to make an even longer expository on the why, and viewing it from those lens, I was like, "Okay, now I understand it now."
Yeah, I have and I guess the reason that I also have Jared Goff at 3, and I do have Stafford at 2, but the same concerns I have about Joe Burrow, I have about Stafford, and that's just his ability to stay healthy.
Mhm,
But if we're putting those things aside and just as overall as a quarterback, I think, yeah, I'd rather have Stafford just because I can trust him
mhm.
when the running game's not going well. Do I have the same confidence in Jared Goff than Matthew Stafford? And the answer is no, I don't, because I've seen it. I've seen him not have a running game and what that looks like, and it hasn't been good. Because
Mhm.
if you take that after, see, when did they have that explosive year? 2018? Yeah, it was 2018 when the Rams went on this whole like crazy run thing. Um, and Jared Goff's numbers in the postseason, pedestrian. Did not look good. Only scored 3 points in the Super Bowl. Then you have the next year to where that same team wasn't really there and Goff struggled.
Mhm.
I agree with you. In this system where he's at right now, he's going to be successful because he is a good quarterback. And as long as you're a good quarterback in that system, you can have a lot of success. But I'm with you. I think I have Goff at 3, Stafford at 2. And I
Mhm.
think I know who you have at 1. It's the same thing as mine.
Mhm.
Jalen Hurts.
No. Definitely not Jalen Hurts. I think and in all seriousness, though, I think Jalen has the opportunity to bounce back and make this top 5 list, but we're basing this off of what he did last season, and there was a stretch, during last year where we thought he could potentially win MVP. I mean, that's what people were saying, that he could win the MVP, and then, the last 6 or 7 games happened, and he just did not look well. And I'll restate what I said the last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when I actually made that statement, but he has the opportunity. He has a real OC now, according to real people, because no one ever gave Dak Prescott any credit for having great regular seasons. Statistically, when Kellen Moore was in town, everyone blamed Dak for everything, and it was not Kellen Moore's fault whatsoever. So if that is the case, then Jalen Hurts should have an all-pro season. So he has an opportunity to get back on this list, but I think we all know who number 1 is, and it's Dak Prescott. Um, you look at I mean, obviously, you look at the All-Pro season. He was, I believe, 2nd in MVP voting. Um, his receiving core, and it's CeeDee Lamb, and then who else? I mean, are we putting a lot of stock into Brandon Cooks now?
I listen, I think this needs to be said. I like Brandon Cooks. I just don't think Mike McCarthy knows how to use him.
Mhm.
He seems to get lost in the shuffle, and we're placing him in positions that and Brandon Cooks is just like, he just can't seem to get
Yeah,
open and get the ball. I
I
think we've
think
seen him in spurts and in moments,
Mhm.
but I don't think his potential has been fully unlocked into what he should have been because I think he still has that talent, but with Mike McCarthy, it's just not working. Scheme wise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think for just argument's sake, if we're gonna judge on what's a good number 2 wide receiver, I would say Michael Gallup pre-injury.
Yeah.
That's the impact that we were kinda looking for with Brandon Cooks, and again, it could be that it's not Brandon Cook's fault, it's the way that he schemed. Could be that,
Or I think
but
even a better
yeah,
example, sorry to cut you off, but it'd be like CeeDee Lamb when Amari Cooper was here. That's a
kinda,
good
yeah.
number 2.
Like, are they gonna get 100 catches? No, but could they get 75 and over 1,000 with about 7, 8 touchdowns? That's kinda what Michael Gallup and CD when he was the number 2 would give you, and I don't think Brandon Cooks has been schemed that way to where he can have that kind of success. There were game stretches last year where he barely got any catches, any targets, And so for me, that's kind of why I'm basing this off of his receiving core. I don't know if we're all that excited about his receiving core. Jake Ferguson, yeah, he's good, but has his production really screamed at you that he's a top 5 tight end in the league?
I don't know, let's see.
Travis
So
Kelce,
I guess you take Travis Kelce over him,
George Kittle,
George Kittle.
Mark Andrews,
Yeah,
Sam Laporta. I like
Sam
Sam Laporta a
Laporta.
whole lot. TJ
Yeah,
Hawkinson has been more he's been more, productive than Jake Ferguson. And I know Jake Ferguson this last year, he did amazingly well. Let me actually you kinda take, the lead on this conversation as I look that
okay.
up because I wanna make sure I'm speaking factually.
Well, well, you said that, and then I was doing the exact same thing. I was gonna look at Hawkinson's numbers. He had 95 receptions, 960 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah,
That was
so
Hawkinson.
so I think yeah, I mean, yes, I think people like to think that he has this overly talented, group around him,
Yeah.
and really the only name that comes to my mind in terms of just elite is just CeeDee Lamb.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think that TJ and Jake are a toss-up. I think that they're y if you take either one, it's fine. I guess I think with Jake, this is kind of his first last year was kind of like his rookie year, really, and he had 70 receptions with 5 receiving touchdowns, and even if we wanna say that in garbage time against the Packers, 10 receptions for 3 touchdowns
Mm.
in the postseason.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
and
he's performed more than George Kittle has in the postseason.
Yeah, yeah, he has, and so I think even if you I how about we say this? Jake Ferguson's probably a fringe top 5 tight end.
Okay, let's say that.
He's a fringe top 5 tight end currently right now. I
Mhm.
think this season, he makes this case of why he's in the top 5.
Let's see.
But even then, so I'll still say Jake Ferguson's a weapon. I'll
Okay.
say CeeDee Lamb is a weapon, but then I agree with you. After that, who else?
Mhm.
When you're looking at all these quarterbacks on this list, Matthew Stafford has Puka, Cooper Kupp, both who we would say are top tier elite wide receivers.
And we would say that Kyren Williams kinda emerged at the end of
Oh,
last
for
season,
sure.
so he has a running game.
He has a running game. Jared Goff has Ahmad St. Brown. Did they lose Reynolds? They
I
still
don't
have
know if they lost Reynolds, I can look that up, but
yeah,
I
but
that's kinda what I said in my opening salvo about, uh
I mean he's got the weapons, he's got the receivers, and then he has a two-headed monster in his running game, and he has the best offensive line in the National Football League. Brock
oh, no,
Purdy,
Josh Reynolds went to Denver.
okay, he went to Denver.
Yeah,
But that Detroit team is still stacked. Still very, very good.
yeah, very good.
And then you have Brock Purdy, currently still Ayuk, Debo,
CMC.
Kittle, CMC,
I
still
like Juwan Jennings, I really do. I
Juwan
really
Jennings
like
is
Juwan
great.
Jennings.
Yeah. Made some big plays in the postseason for
Mhm.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And I think that if Brock Purdy would have had another second to deliver that ball to Jennings and he would have caught it,
Mhm.
San Francisco wins the Super Bowl and Jennings is the MVP. Because remember, he threw the touchdown to McCaffrey on that trick play
Mhm.
and had like huge receptions.
Yeah.
Um, but then you look at Dak, and like we said, he has CeeDee Lamb, he has Jake Ferguson, and then you have an offensive line with a bunch of question marks. You hope
I think
what
heading into this season, yeah.
what you're hearing from the Cowboys is that Tyler Godden is looking good,
Yeah.
but he's a rookie. He's unproven. You're gonna have two rookies starting. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you lost the mentoring presence of Tyron Smith to the Jets to even develop Tyler. You do have an all pro in Tyler Smith and in Zach Martin, but Terrence Steele, you have questions marks about.
Yeah, he
Brock
was
Hoffman,
pretty awful.
you have question marks. And then you have Cooper Beebe and then Tyler Gotten. So you have two of your five offensive linemen that you're confident in. That doesn't bode well. And then there's no running game whatsoever for the Dallas Cowboys.
Mhm.
You hope that Rico Dotto is going to play well.
Mhm.
But then you have Zeke, who I just saw a clip of him tripping over his own feet again, like he did in the regular season, like the last time he was here.
Mm. Yeah. So, I mean, I think with circumstances being the way that they are, I think yeah. I mean, I think Dak has more of an uphill climb unless I'm just forgetting something drastic about these other quarterbacks. But I can only name I mean, for me, I'm not put Jake Ferguson up there. Again,
It's fine.
I'm very harsh on Jake Ferguson. I think after you said that he was gonna be that he's better than
All
Jason Witten.
I did
I've been
not say
I've been
that.
grading
Quit
him
lying.
on that,
I said he was
with
going to
that
be
vision
at
in
the
mind,
end of his career, by the time it's all said and done, I said he was going to be the greatest Cowboys tight end.
and
That's
I think
all I said,
that's
and
balderdash.
listen, and
Balderdash is what
listen,
that
and
is.
all he did after I made that statement was show you that he has that dog in him. You see
I
him listen, as
mm,
much as I wanna give credit to Dak Prescott for beating down Seattle, Jake Ferguson was beating down Seattle, verbally and physically,
yeah, but then
in the play and then after the play. Like,
yeah,
he is a
but
dog.
that doesn't make you better than Jason Witten.
I don't know. It doesn't make him better than Jason Winnett, but to me, that was like to me, that's a signature moment for Jake Ferguson,
Mm,
where he literally took over a game,
mm,
and he's just like, "Don't worry, David, I got you. I'll prove them wrong." He made a statement.
mm.
Made a statement. He's starting to build his case.
I
Now,
I
Jerry
needed
will
him.
probably ruin it.
Well, yeah, he always does. I
Jerry
mean,
will probably ruin it.
I needed Jake to have 87 receptions for 980 yards. I needed him to do that so that he can be kinda up to par with Jason, because that's what Jason did in his second year. You know, he had 33 catches his first year, and then he jumped all the way to 87. That's production. That's being elite. If he had 87 receptions last year, I would put him in my top 5. I mean, 70 is still good. I'm not complaining. 70 is still very, very, very good. But yeah, if you want to add him as like he's an elite weapon for Dak, that's fine. I'm not going to do it. Maybe this year he'll change my mind. I don't know. I feel like I'm way more
You're ve
harsher with
you're
Cowboys
way
players than
yeah.
any other player in the NFL. But I think I've earned that right to be that way.
Well, listen, all Jake Ferguson needs to do this year is have more than 66 catches because that's all Jason Witten did the next year after his second season. And he
Well, that was
started 7 games in his
2000.
first year.
That was 2005. Drew Bledsoe's your quarterback.
No, but he's the greatest Cowboys tight end of all time.
I mean,
He's supposed to
would you
do it.
agree that Dak Prescott's better than Drew Bledsoe?
Oh, for sure,
Then he should have had
100%.
87. In 2004, he had Vinny Testaverde as his quarterback, and he got 87 catches.
But who but did the Cowboys have a receiver like CeeDee Lamb to take some of those catches away?
They had Keyshawn, they had Terry Glenn,
Come on.
they had Joey
Terry Glenn
Galloway for a spell.
really, Joey Galloway
Man,
with
he
the
was good,
Cowboy?
just not with the
Listen,
Cowboys.
you just listen, Keyshawn is nowhere close to CeeDee Lamb.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right.
Nowhere close.
Hey, but there were seasons where Jason Witten put up with T.O. on the team. And T.O. played some really good seasons with the Dallas
He
Cowboys.
did. I'm not listen, we're not
Jason
about to
had a
have
season
we're
where he
not
had
listen,
110 catches.
we're not gonna get too much off track to talk about Jason Witten versus Jake Ferguson again.
I'm willing to bring that conversation up again one
I
day.
know you are, but I'm just saying, I think Jake Ferguson is
Okay,
a fringe top 5,
I'll say fringe.
somebody who I still would consider to be a weapon for Dak because I trust Jake Ferguson. I do.
You go for it.
All right. But those are our top 5 quarterbacks. So we have Brock Purdy at 5, Jordan Love at 4, Goff at 3, Stafford at 2, and then Dak Prescott at number 1.
And I see some of those numbers flipping within the next year.
For sure. For
Depend
sure.
I'm expecting Jordan Love maybe jump to 2, maybe 1. Uh, I may expect Stafford to come down because based on his
Are you
age,
expecting Dak to come down?
no,
Because
it's not more
you
Dak
said you could
coming
see
down, not more
you
Dak coming down more than Jordan jumping, if that makes sense. Like Jordan could play so well that it could be better than how Dak is playing, especially if Dak doesn't have a running game this year and the offensive line doesn't work out the way that we want. That's what I'm basing it off of. Not so much of Dak's talent, but the talent around him not being up to snuff.
yeah. That's gonna make for a very interesting, prediction for the NFC East, though.
Hmm.
If you're saying that now, then you might be coming around to my way of thinking in terms of how the Cowboys are gonna do this season.
I mean, I had them going 9-8 this year. That's not that great.
Well, this kinda gets us into, again, I wish Savage was here for us to have this conversation again. But
Mm,
again, what I was told, that if the Cowboys don't get to 10 wins, it's gonna be because of Dak Prescott.
I don't and
That's what I was told.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
So
I think
you agreed
I
with me.
yeah, and I did agree
Okay.
with you.
I thought you did too. That's what I thought you did. Listen,
No, I
when it
agree
comes
with
li
you.
listen,
I think
all I
there's so many more problems. There's
yeah,
bigger, more glaring problems than Dak Prescott. I'm sorry, there just is. And again, I guess I'll go into this now. If the Cowboys defense had actually shown up at any point in the game against Green Bay and then Dak played bad, that's one thing. But the fact of the matter is, the defense just didn't show up to the stadium at all. The fact that Jordan Love can throw off his back foot, underthrow the ball by 15 yards and still get a touchdown, that is to me way more glaring than the quarterback having a bad quarter of football, a quarter and a half of football.
mhm,
Because I genuinely believe that towards the end of the second quarter, Dak figured it out. He figured it out. He drove the ball down the field, got a score right before halftime, got the ball back in the second half, immediately scored again. I would say that's him figuring it out, correct?
I mean, if to be play devil's advocate, what Savage would say is that Dak almost threw 3 more interceptions that were just flat out dropped.
That's football. I'm sorry, that's just football. If you're down by 21 points, most likely you're gonna make some risky throws. But the fact of the matter is, he actually came and put some points on the board. And what did Micah Parsons and that defense do immediately after? Not even a minute after that. They let them score immediately, and it just didn't stop the rest of the ball game. I
Mhm,
would have a much pointed finger at Dak had the defense showed any life in that game.
mhm,
But for me, when the defense showed up like that, I painted a target on their back
yeah,
because I was told at the beginning of the season this is a historic defense. That this team would go as far as Micah Parsons and this defense took us. Do you remember when people were saying that?
I remember when Savage was saying it. Well, I don't know if he ever said historic defense, but when we were going into the playoffs, he remember he went on that long spiel, uh, that rant before the Packers game, and he said, "Finally, our defense is back. Finally, our defense is
He
clicking."
said they won't score more than 20 points on us. And they scored 40. For me, that is the problem with the Dallas Cowboys. Is that defense. And
Yeah,
you just backed up that point by saying every time that they played a team, a winning football team, that defense folded every single time.
yeah.
Every single time.
I would say the one exception to that was the Seattle game, but I mean, you're at home. Dak just backpack the team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's we need both. We
Yeah,
need both. And neither one of them showed up.
yeah,
But I can make a better case that Dak showed up more than the defense did.
yeah,
So, I mean, this year's going to be very interesting, but I don't think you're going to be surprised about where I'm going with the NFC East when we get there.
yeah. It's good. All right. Well, we'll talk about the NFC East next week. But for this week, we are going to be predicting the NFC North and the NFC South. So let's go ahead and start with the NFC North. We have Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota. Daniel, how do you see this division shaking out, and who do you have on the hot seat?
This is going to be a very interesting division. I think there's 3 teams in this division where we can make a very good case that they could win it. I'm just going with my gut right now. This is subject to change, so have some grace with me about this. I'm going to put Detroit at first. Then I'm going to go Green Bay. Then Chicago. Then Minnesota.
Hmm.
For me, this is the team that's on the hot seat. The Chicago Bears are
I'm
on the
with you.
hot seat.
I agree.
Everyone is painting Caleb Williams as the next Messiah. He's the next Patrick Mahomes. He's already in people's top 5 list. No quarterback drafted number 1 overall has been in a better position than Caleb Williams. You better win the division. Not even make the playoffs. You have to win the division. You have everything you need. Coaching aside, apparently you don't need a good coach. Because I remember everyone was ready to get rid of the head coach last year.
I still am.
But now that Caleb Williams is there, no one's talking about it anymore. Nick Wright has them in the Super Bowl now. So you have to win the division. The first couple weeks of your schedule, it's a cakewalk. You're playing against young quarterbacks. The hard part of your schedule is on the back end. So you have the time to get your feet wet, get comfortable in this league, play some really good football, get some really, really easy wins here in the beginning of the season. Go do it. Chicago Bears are on my hot seat.
I mean, I agree with mostly everything you said. I have the division shaking out the exact same way. I have Detroit, then Green Bay, then Chicago, and then Minnesota. I guess my only I do think that Minnesota and Chicago are close because offensively I like what Minnesota has. It's just I'm not sold on their quarterback situation.
I mean, he's looked
Sam
good in training camp, but
Sam Darnold has looked really good in training camp. They currently have him as the number 1 quarterback right now. But and this is probably the most talent that Sam Darnold has had, I mean, since San Francisco. So they could shock everybody and have a really, really good offense.
Mhm.
I have Chicago also on the hot seat, but I'm not putting it on Caleb Williams. I'm putting it on Eberflus. Like, I think he's on the hot seat because I think he should have been fired. I mean, you botched Justin Fields, who is an incredible athlete. You never gave him an offensive line. I guess that goes to the GM as well. You put him in a scheme that just was not working, did not fit. Now you get your quarterback, a generational talent, in Caleb Williams. He's on the hot seat. Because if you don't have a good season, it's not going to be because of Caleb. I don't think. Now, do I think that Caleb Williams has been hyped a little bit too much? Yes. Has he painted a target on his back with some of the comments that he's made? Yeah. But ultimately, I'm going to be consistent across the board. You need good coaching to be successful.
Mhm.
Chicago just doesn't have that. And so I say that Chicago's on the hot seat. Eberflus is on the hot seat because I think Minnesota has a great head coach, or I'll say good. No, he was pretty great. I mean,
Pretty good.
got him to the playoffs.
Mhm. His first year.
First year, got him to the playoffs, 13-3 or 13-4, I think was the record. You see what Dan Campbell's doing in Detroit. He's a great coach. Matt LaFleur is a great coach. Chicago doesn't. You have all this talent, but you don't have the coach. So I agree with you that Chicago is on the hot seat. Eberflus is on the hot seat. I don't think that I would put that though on Caleb Williams if they're not successful.
I'm going on based on what everybody is telling me.
I'm trying not to do
He's
that.
he's the next Patrick Mahomes, and apparently Patrick Mahomes does not need good coaching. You put him, you put
Mm,
Justin Herbert, you put them on all these other teams, and they're going to be better. They're going to make it work. No one is complaining about the head coach right now. No one's putting him on the hot seat. No one's saying he better be successful or you're going to be fired. They believe they're going to be successful. And if we're going to do that for every other quarterback in this league, saying it's all on you. We're going to give you all the credit, because I know if they win, they're going to put all of it on Caleb Williams.
mhm.
Savage loves to say this. Heavy is a head that wears the crown. And if no one is talking about the head coach right now because they believe you're the Messiah, I'm going with what everybody else says, David. I know that's not fair. But I'm trying to show people how ridiculous sometimes putting expectations on certain situations are. And this is not going to be my figure it out guy, but Caleb Williams, figure it out. Figure it out. That's why I'm telling you, David, that's why figure it out doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. This is going to be the reason why.
So, are you saying that you're playing devil's advocate right now?
For what?
Like you're like for like or are do you actually believe this? Or are you just saying these things because you want to show just how unfair the whole
I
heavy is
don't
the
think
head
I
that
don't
wears the
think
crown? Or because my thing is heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's probably the most ridiculous and unfair um phrase we have in a team sport called football.
Mhm.
It's terrible
No, I agree.
because we've seen so many Super Bowl quarterbacks, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. They've all had great head coaches. They've all had teams that stepped up and have done their jobs to some extent. Chicago doesn't have that.
Apparently it doesn't matter.
And to me that's my problem. That's why I don't like the whole heavy is the head that wears the crown, because it places all the responsibility on one player. Okay. And I loved what Ryan Clark said. I don't know if I sent it to you or not, but he was kind of talking about, and I know we talk about him all the time, and I apologize for that, but he's my guy. Ryan Clark was talking about Dak Prescott because Mad Dog Russo did not have Dak as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And Ryan Clark, or no, it was Louis Riddick. Sorry, Louis Riddick. And he went on a huge rant and said, Dak has all the numbers, all pro, second MVP voting, 36 touchdowns, 9 receptions. He says, and he says, and I understand what you're saying about lack of postseason success. But what he said is that no one else showed up in that game. The defense didn't play at all. You need your team to come around you. And he said, the way that we talk about Dak Prescott and to some extent Tua is exactly the same, which is for all these other quarterbacks, they get all the credit when they win. And when they lose, it's everybody else's fault. That's what some people say that I am with Dak Prescott. But here's the reality of, if we want to talk about everybody else, what everybody else says when it comes to guys like Tua and guys like Dak, even though I think that Dak is significantly better than Tua, is when the Cowboys win, it's because the Cowboys. When the Cowboys lose, it's because of Dak Prescott.
Mhm. I would agree with that. That's how people kinda judge it.
And the reason behind that is heavy is the head that wears the crown, which doesn't make sense because we don't do that with every quarterback in the NFL. Because if we did that, Lamar Jackson would not be a top 3 quarterback.
Well, again, I'm
If
telling
that's true, then Justin Herbert would not be in people's top 5.
mm,
If that's true, Josh Allen wouldn't be as high as he is because since 2021, he has not, or 2019 maybe, or 2020. It was one of those 2 years. It's been a long time since Josh Allen has been to the AFC Championship game
mhm,
while leading the league in turnovers, and nobody says anything about that. So
mhm,
that's why takes like heavy is the head that wears the crown does not work for me because we don't apply it to everybody across the board. It's an
and
unfair expectation placed on quarterbacks. And I move that we get rid of it completely. Because if we do, I have less stuff to say about quarterbacks around the league that are not named Dak Prescott.
and again, I'm showing you how terrible that way of thinking is. But here's what I believe about the Chicago Bears. I do think they have a head coach deficiency. That's why I have them 3rd. But
Yeah.
how I will judge Caleb Williams is how they judge Dak Prescott and every other, or not every other quarterback, because you're right. They do not judge every quarterback by the same standard. That is the issue. So if we're going to go hard on Dak Prescott, it's open season on everybody else in my eyes.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to judge it. Figure it out.
That segment's going to be crazy once we do it.
Mm,
That segment's going to be crazy. Um, but all right, last division for today, we have the NFC South. This one's going to be an interesting division. We have the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll go ahead and go with this one. I think the best team coming out of the NFC South has to be Tampa Bay.
mhm,
Um, I mean, they've kept the same quarterback. They made it to the playoffs last year. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles convincingly. You bring back Mike Evans, you still have Godwin. I feel a little bit better about this team, and all the other teams just have question marks. Carolina, we
mhm.
don't know what they're going to be.
Yeah.
New Orleans, is Derek Carr still going to be the quarterback by the end of the season? I have some people predicting that Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina is going to take over midseason.
Mm,
So they don't even know who they have at quarterback. Alvin Kamara has not been the same in years. Then in Atlanta, you have Kirk Cousins. That's probably the team that I have finishing at second. I mean, you have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. I mean, their defense has no pass rush still. So to me, it's Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to win this division, followed by the Atlanta Falcons. And then it's going to be, I'm going to say New Orleans and then Carolina. But to me, the team that's on the hot seat in the NFC South is the New Orleans Saints. Dennis Allen, you've had plenty of time. You've done nothing.
mm.
You've done absolutely nothing. Derek Carr has not looked the same. He's regressed so much. They have to figure it out. So that's my team that's on the hot seat. What do you think?
No, I think for me, I think Tampa Bay is going to win the division. I think Atlanta's going to be in second, New Orleans third, and then Carolina at fourth. I think with the question marks at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, I think no one's really going to expect much from them this year. Same thing with Carolina. They're a poverty franchise in most people's eyes. And so I don't think anyone has real expectations for them. Again, I think Tampa Bay, they kind of They kinda finished off the year really great, they beat, the defending NFC champions in the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat them soundly,
Mhm.
and then they were competitive, I believe, against was it Detroit the next
Detroit,
week?
yeah, they played really, really well.
And so I think they're gonna, get better. I think their offensive coordinator did stick around for another year,
I think he did.
and so a second year with Baker Mayfield, Baker finally having an offensive coordinator for more than a season, finally is gonna happen. I think they're in a good place. I mean, Ryan Jensen did retire, and so or did he retire before the beginning of last season?
I can't remember if he did or not.
Anyway, but so I think Baker Mayfield is going to be better. He got paid, so spirits are going to be high. Unless Atlanta proves that they're going to be better, that's who is on my hot seat as well.
Yeah.
Um, you kind of went all in with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, you did.
The only question mark is you were so confident in Kirk Cousins, you took a quarterback with the 9th overall pick.
Yeah.
So, that's kinda where they're kinda wavering in terms of confidence for me,
Mhm.
is the fact that they felt like they needed to take a quarterback 9th overall who many people I don't know if they thought he was gonna go that high. Um, so that raises some red flags for me, but for me on the hot seat, Atlanta.
Yeah. So, actually, Baker does have a new offense coordinator this year.
Well, dang.
So, but I expect this to be a good move, honestly, because he's coming from, well, sorry, I thought I saw, well, he was the offense coordinator with the Rams, but only for one season in 2022. But that's when I think Stafford went down.
Oh, and then Baker kinda came in and
Yeah.
played
So
pretty well.
there's some
Okay.
familiarity with them.
Yeah. We'll see.
Um, yeah,
We will see.
but that's going to do it for us here on Double Take, a football podcast during our summer special season. Next week is our final episode of Double Take, a football podcast before we switch over to the new show, Double Take, a sports podcast. In that episode, we'll cover the first week of the NFL preseason. We'll do some quarterback battles for some teams. We're going to introduce Daniel's segment for the show and maybe Savage's, just kind of depending on how things shake out. And then we're also going to be concluding our last two divisions in the NFC for predictions. So make sure to help us out as we get running with our new format of our show by following the new channel at Double Take, a sports podcast. The link will be in the description. Once we get it up and running, we'll be posting our podcast episodes, but then we're also going to be featuring our segments like Figure It Out and much more. You're going to see all of that soon, but until then, have a great weekend of watching preseason football as we get closer to the NFL regular season. God bless.